Gen AI it's happening right now that law is being transformed with Gen AI. This is not a future-looking talk. A lot of Media Lab talks are. As Robert mentioned, I'm a researcher here in the Media Lab, and I run law.mit.edu, which focuses on what we call computational law. That has, for almost the entirety of its existence, been a over-the-horizon activity. Not anymore. And you may have noticed when GPT-4 was released with the benchmarks and evaluations, one of them was the bar exam, and GPT-4 aced the bar exam. There was a recent paper called Better Call GPT, sort of like Better Call Saul, that was took a different approach to evaluating the legal capabilities of foundation models. And again, it's performing very, very well. Essentially what I'm trying to say is the current generation of large language models are uncannily good at performing legal tasks and processes. I am psyched about this. There is a bunch of legal use cases that I've always wanted to solve since practicing law in the 90s and trying to script things and have more automated workflows and processes that have been well out of reach. They're not out of reach today. Incumbents, I should mention, in the law are being somewhat shaken up. So Westlaw, Thomson Reuters, and others are experiencing a tectonic shift in how they're packaging their service offerings as they seek ways to infuse their products and services with generative AI. And perhaps even more interestingly, there is a whole renaissance of new startups that are blossoming, that are finding entirely new almost models of ways to deliver legal services powered by generative AI. We track a lot of this here at law.mit.edu through our publication, the MIT Computational Law Report, which has been, perhaps not surprisingly, exclusively focused on generative AI since January of last year. And we keep close track of happenings in the field. We also try to propagate, play our role to help the law and businesses and other stakeholders that depend upon law to better understand and adopt the technology by doing convening and finding different pathways to propagate it into the regular usage. And some of that has to do with the responsible use of generative AI for law. So in February of last year, we convened the task force on responsible use of generative AI for law, and that was very successful. While it's amazing at law, there are limits. It's prone to some flaws, hallucination, others that we've seen today. This doesn't make it unsuitable for law, but what it does require is some education and like a mapping of the rules of ethics and professional responsibility to how to responsibly use this technology. So, don't breach confidentiality, still a rule. And in this case, it might mean taking a look at the terms and conditions of an outsourced provider of a model to see whether they're training on your data. All the same rules seem to apply perfectly well, which is good news. This work was picked up by the state of California, which adopted it, improved it somewhat, I think, and it's now promulgated as the regulation in California for California attorneys. That's a lot of attorneys. So the messaging here is, yes, this is good, use it, and here's some tips on how to use it responsibly. So I keep asserting that it's good. Let me just run through like a handful of ways in which it's great. You can brief a case with this. This is sort of like first year law school stuff. You get a case from a court. We have different methods for briefing it, like what is the issue, what was the reasoning, what was the rule, or the holding, that sort of thing. It is really good at that. You can review contracts and look at where the need for amendments might be. You can do e-discovery. That's the process when you're in litigation that each party can ask relevant documents from the others. Identifying whether a piece of information is relevant or not to some matter is another really good fit for the literally, we call it the inference that these models do. They're really good at knowing within a context whether something is or isn't relevant, which used to be considered a relatively high-paid legal domain task. Mediation was something that surprised me. In our January open workshop, we had a celebrated global mediator, Susan Guthrie, join us, and she showed how she's using GPT-4 and Claude in rather complex international and other mediations as an aid, from getting assistance with reviewing and extracting relevant information from loads of data herself, helping parties reframe communications to other parties to maybe take some of the heat out of it, and on and on. It's really the tip of the iceberg right now as we understand all of the rich capabilities that these models have for the various tasks and processes within law, but they're very well suited. Do you know, statutory analysis, I'll end with it. When I started law practice, I was a legislative aide, and I did a lot of government work, a lot of legislation. And I've always done a lot of statutory analysis. It's really good at statutory analysis. Now, did you notice the theme here was with each of the examples I showed, it wasn't kind of put in a prompt and then like shake the magic 8-ball and hope that it gets the answer right from some wide distribution in the training data and the subsequent training. It's rather include the contract with like an instruction prompt, include the case and have it brief the case, include the statute and give it the right instructions for analyzing that statute. So the context is king with the app generally, but very much specifically when we try to use this tool for legal work. When all the relevant context is included within the context window, it does very, very good job. And it's hardly prone to hallucination. Looking forward over the horizon to not just kind of mundane workaday legal tasks that we can apply this tool to, but whole new ways to address law. One of the projects I'm most interested about that we're just launching now, I call the shape of the law. Just to give you a context for what this is, one of the main reasons I went to law school to start with, well, I was happily doing technology before that. There was always some legal issue or wrinkle. We have to talk to the lawyers. And I was just wanting to get to the bottom of like, what is the law? I don't feel I've got a straight answer to that question to this day. And that was like 25 years ago. And I've been asking and I've been looking, but now for the first time, it apparently is possible to put the entire corpus of law or corpora of law, statutes, regulations, case law, federal and state level, into a process of this type and to know it all. This is a project in Australia where Umar Butler, who's a data scientist in the Attorney General's office of the state of Victoria, did just that with Australian law, federal and state statutes, regs, and case law, like the law, all of it. Vectorized it, did some very ingenious clustering algorithms to find semantic similarity, like a cosine similarity, reduced it to a two-dimensional map, and you could sort of see the law. And like contracts touch corporate law, and like some things are similar. Some things like migration appear like an island. They're not particularly semantically or otherwise connected to other areas of law. It's very interesting. And on the desktop, you can sort of mouse over this and you can, click on any point and see what the statute or the reg or the case is. We're doing this now, and Umar, I'm proud to say, is a member of our open source team to do this with US law, which is much larger and more complex. And we're going to add a time element. So if you go to our GitHub repo, you'll see the schema now has time so that we can incorporate like a slider, and you can see how the law has evolved over time. This is really interesting. We might start, what I believe we'll be able to see when we've done our clustering is different areas of law that don't have names right now. The law is so complex and has evolved so much since the taxonomies of 20, 30, 50 years ago. I'm sure that there's whole areas of law that we didn't realize existed, but we can, when we get this God's eye view, see what they are and what the rules are. So for the first time, we can know the law. This will be a good day for me. I want an answer to that question. So looking forward, as we just heard from other speakers, I really do think agentic AI is going to be a major factor in accelerating the transformation of law, as with other parts of the economy and society. But in particular with law, law is sort of processes of processes when we practice it, and being able to have agent flows that are connected in different ways and perhaps orchestrated or maybe on a graph, can operate according to some schema, could be really huge. It will be huge. GPT-5, we're told, is coming this year. And that may present advances in reasoning. Maybe it will start to have theory of mind, I'm imagining from some of the rumblings. I live in the Bay Area now and go to all the meetups and stuff. And if it can start to understand a little better what is the other party probably thinking and have a theory of mind, that's going to blow the lid off being able to make the correct inferences at the deeper level of complexity that we need when we're practicing law and advising strategically. And the most important thing is context. So in order to get the highest quality legal outputs from these models, you have to put in all the relevant context. Well, guess what? Even with the 200,000 context window with Opus and the million token context window of Gemini Pro 1.5, that still runs out. Like, I'm still making like hard decisions about what to put in and what not to put into that context window to get the best outputs and to get all the inferences correcting right, and so it can do the right reasoning. There's a paper just like a couple weeks ago called No Context Left Behind, and it's one of a series of papers showing how you can blow the context window open so it's limitless, infinite context. As in, different people are coming at this in different ways at the kind of attention head point in the transformer model seems to be where people are doing it. But I think this will happen. And when we have infinite context, it's going to change everything. You could put the entire corpus of data of a corporation through a powerful foundation or frontier level model, pose legal questions. You could, and along with the entire corpus of law and all of the opinions of counsel, all their legal strategy, and get really interesting, perhaps really good, fast, like immediately adaptive and well-suited answers. We could finally have like business at the speed of thought. And what that really means is it's not just good for organizations, but what about individuals? And what does this mean for personal AI? As Apple and others catch up, and with the more powerful open source models, that we can have some modicum of more ownership and control of ourselves on our own devices as they catch up, this could unleash a very profound set of capabilities and possibilities for individuals in the future. The infinite context of our lives could help to guide our present and future decisions and our path through life. This will be a good day. So I want to thank you very much.